Well, wonderful. It is 5 o'clock. So we are going to dive in. I know that people will be, trickling on, and we're excited for everyone to join us this evening to talk about something so important, the power of community, and definitely something near and dear to my heart. Rise was really born out of me craving a community. I left education to start a company to help high school girls, and working from home and not having a circle of peers. Up until that point, all I knew were teachers. And here I'm on this venture to start this company that I didn't know what I was doing. And I felt so isolated and alone. And so building a community of peers was so important to me and really changed my life, and is why I'm here today. So it's something we're really passionate about. And the panelists we have are men and women who I have looked up to and admired from the moment I started coming to Denver. You guys might not all know this, because some of you I'm just meeting for the first time. But when I first came to Denver, I was like, who do I talk to? I'm born and raised St. Louis. I need to break in, and I can't tell you how many times people brought all of your names up to me and just sharing how impressive you all are, what an impact you're making in Denver, and I'm just honored and flattered to have you here this evening. So thank you. We do things a little bit different here. If you've never attended a Rise event, all of these people today have some of the most impressive bios, which I highly encourage you to read on LinkedIn or various other places that they tell you. But I like to do things different when we have panel discussions, because I want you to get to know them as people and learn a little fun fact about them. And because everything we do at Rice Collaborative is to inspire young women to dream and achieve big. And so I like to start the conversation actually going back to your younger days of either high school or whenever you got your first job. And we like to start the conversation talking about your first job and then talking about your current job. So let's see, who is my first victim here today? Gloria, how about you? Can I start with you?
All right, sure. Well, thank you again, Stacy, for bringing us all together to virtually connect on a topic that, as you mentioned, is near and dear to your heart and clearly in our DNA as well. And it's special to be among so many extraordinary panelists who I feel blessed to have as dear friends as well. So my first job in high school in my glory days was working at a frozen yogurt shop in South Daytona, Florida. To save money for my dream car, which was a VW Golf. I, of course, don't have that VW Golf anymore, even though a lot of people know, and Kasia would tease me all the time about the fact that I had my VW Jetta for like 20 years that I just let go of.
That's awesome.
A year ago. But now I'm blessed to work for VF Corporation as the ED of the VF Foundation and Director of Global Impact. And in that work, we just partner with nonprofits around the globe to drive purposeful movements for the betterment of people and planet.
Nice. A question for you about working at a frozen yogurt place. Did you still like the yogurt by the end, or were you burnt out on it?
I can tell you that I don't do any dairy anymore. I'm gluten and dairy.
Right.
Yeah, I had my fill for sure.
Wonderful. Welcome. Priya, what about you? What was your first job and your current job?
All right. My first job was, I loved taking photography in high school. It was a hobby of mine. And I convinced the Gaithersburg Gazette in the suburban town of Maryland for me to take pictures for high school games. And they would pay me a whopping $27 per picture that they ended up using in the newspaper. Nice. So I was thinking I was going to end up being a photographer for National Geographic. And so that was like my way of getting into that. So a lot has changed since then.
That's awesome.
Because I love to travel. That's National Geographic. Currently, I have retired from corporate America. I was with American Express. However, I am still working for our company called the Fly Fisher Group. So I would say that's more entrepreneurial. And on the philanthropic side, we and I run the Burkett Family Foundation.
That's awesome. Very cool. I love that you took pictures. It's so fun to see like the different things we end up doing. Yes. Leanna, I feel a little bit unfair because I know your answer because I interviewed you for our new Rice platform, and I can't wait to let everyone hear your interview. But for people who don't know, what was
my current job has changed though.
That is true.
New, yes.
So
my first job, depending on how you look at it, I bussed tables in high school. But then my real first job outside of college was in small market television in rural Nebraska. I did it all. I reported and shot during the day, and then I was a co-anchor on the 5:30 news and produced and anchored the 10 p.m. Did a little bit of everything. Drove around on a lot of dirt roads in rural Nebraska, lost, pre-GPS days. Learned a lot on how to just fend for myself and figure out how to get things done, even when I really didn't know how. So it was a great start to a career. And as of 2 weeks ago, I am now the new CEO of the Girl Scouts of Colorado. So I've got my green. Thank you. So I'm officially drinking from a fire hose, learning a ton, but very excited. We serve 20,000 girls and so much more than campfires and cookies. So learning about our programs, outreach to underserved girls, incarcerated girls, girls with disabilities, as well as just teaching girls overall to have the courage and character and confidence to make a difference in the world. So I'm very excited to be on board. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I love me some alliteration. So you just made me really happy. Kasia, what about you? What was your first job?
Well, my business skills were honed at the very young age of 10. I had approached my Polish mother just shortly after we moved to the States with a request for an allowance. And she quickly quipped in a very heavy Eastern European accent, which, by the way, my sister and I think she's on here somewhere, we fondly mimic this when we call each other on the phone. And she laughed, cackled very loudly and said, and asked me actually why she should pay me to clean up my own dirt. We get jobs to earn money. So, so I got on my huffy bike and I drove down to this hair shop that gave me the first haircuts when I came to the States, and I hustled that owner for a job to sweep his floors. And that's sort of where my career began, and I've been working ever since. Today, I have the pleasure of working for a global healthcare company, Cigna, as a vice president of community and government engagement. And I like to say that I sit at this corporate intersection of doing good and doing well.
Ooh, I like that. And Scott, certainly not last but not least, how about you? What was your first job? I don't know if I know this.
Well, you're about to learn. But first, Miss Burkett, I wanted to tell you that your husband and I are on the Visit Denver board together, and I received the Christmas card and from your family, and you have the most beautiful family.
Thank you so much.
You have to see their
Thank
great
you.
TikToks too. They're very talented.
It gets better and better every year. It's amazing.
Gorgeous. Gorgeous. So I am actually sitting in my mom's house, the house that I grew up in Lorain, Ohio, right now. And my first job was right behind our house. We had a florist business, and we had 4 greenhouses and our own flower shop. And at the age of 10, I planted flowers, I picked flowers, watered flowers, weeded flowers. When I became 16, I could drive and I could deliver flowers. So, but growing up and working in the greenhouses, I could not go out and play with the other kids in the neighborhood until all my work was done. So
there you go.
I learned a work ethic at a very young age. And after 31 years in the newspaper business and 18 of those 31 as the publisher of the Denver Business Journal, I went to work for EKS&H, which is now Plant Moran. And I've represented the company out in the community by serving on boards, 100 events a year, and moderating panels, and just really spending a lot of time in the community on the company.
And welcoming new people into the community. When I was new to Denver, you were so welcoming and really opened doors for me. And you're a big part of our success in Denver. So thank you.
Well, thanks. I love to connect really cool people. So
you do it well. Well, I'm excited to dive into our topic today about the power of community. When I started Rice Collaborative, which is a community, I got really great advice from another co-working space in St. Louis. It's a co-working space called Tech Artista. So shout out to Tech Artista. Their founder said to me, Stace, if you don't define your community will define you. And I thought that was such good advice. So much so that we nerded out and made a manifesto, which you can check out on our website, that's talking about what we love, what we believe, what we're passionate about, to really help people to know, who and what we're all about. And so I'm curious what you guys think really makes a great community. When you're thinking about building community, what are some characteristics and things you think about? Let's see, Kasia, I'm gonna start with you. Is that cool?
Yeah.
I like to make
so. What makes a great community? Well, it's a really big question. I think it's a pretty simple one. I think often we're living in this sort of, I call it maybe the spirit of community, and what I mean by that is like in a community you're supposed to have a sense of fellowship and common goals, and your perhaps even common interests, and you're working toward a common achievement. And I think some define it as a group of people that are united with also a common struggle. I think I would say that whatever your definition is, communities are going to be vital and I think really essential for us to be able to sustain, to exist. And I think a community can impact a world and a government. And I think my journey and our journey today is a great example of that. I think that being said, any group can become a community, but I think if you aren't purposeful in defining your group and your intentions, the contributions and the goal, it will begin to evolve on its own, and inherently it'll be defined for you by default.
Right. Yeah. That's why I think that advice was so helpful, and you want to be intentional about what you're doing. I appreciate that. Leanna, how about you? When you think about a great community, like for example, Girl Scouts.
Yes. Will you guys indulge me? Does the chat feature, is it working? Is it active?
Is working, I believe.
All right.
I do see some chats coming in, and I'm glad you brought that up. So for the audience members, I'm going to try to get through our questions, although these women and men have great things to say. If we have time, I am going to take some questions at the end. But Lena.
But I want to ask, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to see the chat or if just you can, Stacy, but I want to ask everybody, panelists too, indulge me. I want you to ask you to close your eyes. Everybody close your eyes. I'm looking, close your eyes. Yeah, and I want you to think,
chat.
I want you to think about, you can keep them open. I want you to think about a community that you are part of. So it could be your neighborhood. It could be where you work. It could be a group of friends. It could be people that you share a hobby with. It could be your Girl Scout troop. But think about that. And then I'd love to have people enter in the chat what words and feelings come to mind when you think about that community. Because my sense is you might help us answer this question. So Stacy, as you see them, I'd love to hear them.
And it's a little shy right now, but I'm sure they'll.
As they come in,
okay, good.
I will say, oh, here they come.
But yeah, open-minded, friendship,
support, collaborative, compassion, purposeful.
Ooh, these are good.
These are good, people. Engagement, all really good. Friends.
Yes.
Yeah, I think these are great. Energetic, empathy, village, supportive, diverse, uplifted. And my guess would be, as you guys had your eyes closed,
I like inclusive.
Probably pictures or images of people came to mind. And I think it's just really important that communities might be defined by a geography or by a common interest, but the communities are people who need each other and who depend on each other for all the different things that we're seeing come in the chat. So I think you all answered it for us. These are all what's so important about community right here.
Well, we have a lot of amazing questions. I'm happy for the other panelists to jump in if you want to jump in, but I'm also happy to go to the next question. Any feelings?
I think I was just gonna, sorry.
No, please.
I was just gonna add really quick. In this day and age with everything that's happening and has been happening, I think one thing for us to continue to keep in mind is being open-minded and working to allow people that may not be like-minded in your circle. Easier said than done, because the definition of community means you have some values or something you share in common. And as we expand and become even more inclusive and diverse, how do we now change that paradigm to kind of intentionally open the doors for others that may not naturally fit in that ecosystem that you've created?
Yeah, I love that. And that's where it's like, if you don't define your community will define you. If you don't set out to be intentional about, bringing in new people, then you're just going to be stuck with those 5 people that you were raised with or what have you. Yeah, I love that. Gloria or Scott, I don't want to cut you off if you want to
Yeah.
add something, but I don't want you to feel like you have to.
Well, my word for Denver was really inclusive. I transferred in from another market, and I came from a market where if you were not born there and went to one of the local universities there, then you really had the odds stacked against you in the business world. And period with that newspaper, I was on a total of 3 boards. And in a 1-year period in Denver, I was on 8 boards, because in Denver, it's like, we don't care where you're from. We're all from someplace else. So come on in, let's have some fun. Let's get some work done. And I can tell you that after 1 week in Denver, I called the CEO of our company and I said, I'm home. This is my 4th newspaper. It's my last. No more transfers. I said, this place is unbelievable. Larry Strutton, who was the publisher of the Rocky Mountain News at the time, and one of my competitors, in the first week, invited me out to lunch to see how he might be able to help me out. And
That's a great example.
Amazing place. And I think a community really, really, really succeeds when the people involved don't care who gets the credit.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's all brilliantly said. And I think the only thing that I would, add is, I think, my parents were incredibly community and service minded. And, I learned that nothing is more rewarding or meaningful in life than to be part of something that's greater than yourself, right? And when you can find your tribe of like-minded doers with a purpose, it's a powerful combination in terms of what can be accomplished for the greater good.
Ooh, say that again. That was really powerful. When you find your tribe.
Yeah, I think, when you find your tribe of just like-minded doers, who want things done with a purpose, I think it's a powerful combination in terms of what can be accomplished for the greater good.
Ooh, I like that. I'm gonna have to write that down. If someone's listening, write that down. That's awesome. And I totally agree. And that sort of moves us to the second question. I can remember being a math teacher and I was in my 20s and I, always have been this ambitious kid that wanted to take on the world. And the advice you hear as a young person is it's not what you know, it's who you know, and that advice used to shut me down because I'm actually a secret introvert. As I know nobody believes me, but it's the truth. And or as I got into the business world, you hear that one of the biggest predictors to success is social capital, but then you also hear that women and minorities have access to less and different social capital. And that, and so we've been set out on this mission to change that and to make social capital more accessible to many, because it really does impact your success. It impacts what you can do. So I'm curious for you guys how community and connections has helped you become successful, because all of you have had are doing amazing things, have done amazing things. So I'm curious how community connections has helped play a role in your success. Leanna, can I pick on you?
Yeah, I mean, it's everything. It's absolutely everything. It enables you to pick up the phone and get things done because you have that network and you have that support system. But they're also the people that'll knock you upside the head when you're not thinking or you're being closed-minded or you've got those blinders on. So I don't think that I could have accomplished anything in my career without community. And I echo what Scott said about the community here in Denver and just how welcoming and inviting they are. I think we also, as we've seen in the last couple of weeks, we have a lot to learn. We have a long way to go in terms of making sure that we are as inclusive in our community as possible. But I would just say that I wouldn't be anywhere in my career without the community that I've been surrounded with. And I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah. Priya, what about you? How has community helped you? I know, you had quite the job in corporate and it seems like at a young age. So that's very impressive that you climbed the ladder so quickly. How did community and connections help with that?
I thought about this as people were talking, and one of the things that really helped me. So first of all, I have to say, Stacy, that I felt the same as you. My parents being immigrants, not having any legacy or connections of any kind.
Yes.
I did not have like what I would call a network. And when I came to Colorado in my 20s, I did not understand what that meant. And a person in one of my, in the company I worked for, he stepped up to me, right, and became a sponsor. And I know we all know what that means and what that is intended for. But at that time, I didn't understand. And I guess my point is now when they would offer me advice, I'm like, okay, I got this, but I guess like, cause there wasn't a term for it at that time, right? at least that I was aware of. And when they were opening doors for me and helping me understand what that network can do, where when you meet people, that's how you find out and get to know people. That relationship building is what allows others to understand your authenticity. That's what helps build trust. And that's what leads to opportunities, right? So in addition to working hard. So that network is what opened up and really helped me to understand, okay, I'm like what my next step should be, because I was able to reach out. And when I asked questions, I could be candid and blunt because they understood where I was coming from.
Ooh, that's good. Now, Gloria, you too, you've climbed quite the corporate ladder yourself, you know, and women in corporate sometimes struggle to get to the high levels. Gloria, how did you use community and connections to help you through that?
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be where I am today or who I am today if it wasn't for just my community, my network, my tribe. I think that, you know, any door or every door that has opened to me in my career journey has been due to, you know, someone who believed in me and challenged me to reach my full potential, even when I questioned my own potential, and helped me in that process of self-discovery and on helping me with that journey of even, you know, what brings me joy and what's my purpose and meaning in my work. And I do feel like I've just been incredibly blessed with just the people, you know, within my orbit that I would just reach out to and have conversations with, and that a lot of times organically these opportunities would arise when I'd express the direction I was feeling was the right way for me to go. So I think that that's a big part of just the Denver DNA as well, is just it is a very welcoming and supportive community. And I think that that really is something that's unique to this town, is that I think there are a lot of folks that are out there who want to help people reach their full potential and continue to grow. And even just with the evolution that we've continued to have as a city and as we continue to grow, I still see that, which I think is just incredibly inspiring. And I feel very grateful to be part of this community and this network, and to have all of you as panelists, like I said before, who are dear friends as well.
You know, I would definitely agree. And I will say that I'm fortunate because both St. Louis and Denver have very much been that way for me, and I wouldn't be here without it. So I love that. Kasia, how about you? I know that, you know, so many people brought you up before you and I even met, and your community is quite strong. And I'm curious, on top of what I asked, but I'm also curious, like, how you built such a strong community. People, you know, talk about you for quite a few people told me you know everyone, kind of like Mr. Denver, as I said earlier. Maybe
I hope it's all good stuff. No, I think I'd probably be a farm girl in Poland without my community and my connections this day. So I don't know. I think for me, I will say that a community is what you make of it, right? And I think, you know, whether it was a small town, small village in Poland, or a small town in Colorado that I grew up in, or, you know, my current really incredible group of humans that influence me, surround me, put their arms around me, but also give me a nice big swift kick when necessary, to Leanna's point. We might be. Yes. But it's, you know, it's this, these folks are, you know, at the early stages of your life and your career, are raising you or growing up with you. They're helping you, they're supporting you, they're, you know, and your job is to return that. And it's, you know, I feel like building authentic, meaningful relationships is, and doing it genuinely. I build my relationship with no intent except for to get to know someone. I am not asking you for anything. I may later, but I am building that genuinely because I'm super interested. So pandemic or not, I mean, this is challenging for me to be in this house 24/7, but it's really difficult, right? To be sitting here and not touching and connecting with my fellow panelists and the folks in the virtual audience. But community, it's just for me, it's a belief in building those genuine and authentic relationships. And I think, you know, my story as an immigrant of a very challenging country during a very challenging time is a little bit different than most. We depended on one another to survive and to eat, to, you know, to be able to be clothed at times, right? And I think in the US, I think the same principles still apply. No matter what community you live in, no matter what demographic, you must reach out to one another on some level. There are pockets, right? And I think that's how we can be much better when we're together, when we're doing things together, whether toward, it's towards success or whether it's through health and well-being. I think, when we're trying to do it on our own, it's less successful, and I think it's less fun.
Yeah. And I appreciate you bringing up the whole not transactional. When we were building Rice Collaborative, I was trying to think about how do I language that, because it's so important that when you're building relationships, it's not what's in it for me, So we finally came up with the core value of relationships first. We want businesses to business to happen. But the number one thing is to start by building a relationship first. And Scott, how about you? How has it played a role in your success? I mean, being the publisher of the Denver Business Journal and doing what you're doing today.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I believe that if you have an agenda when you're getting involved in the community, you're going down the wrong path.
Yes.
It's all about what can we give instead of what can we get. And I firmly believe that in connecting people like you to others, the way to do it is to do it out of love for that person and wanting to help that person succeed, and to not keep score, just saying, okay, I introduced you to 6 people, so you owe me. No, I believe that you get what you give. And I believe goodness comes back around, and just the opposite happens as well. If you're kind of a hateful, vengeful person, you probably have a lot of relationships like that in your life. But
Karma.
Yes, karma. Scott, I can remember George Paz was the founder and CEO of Express Scripts here in St. Louis when I had the good fortune of meeting him. And so many people were like, what's your ask going to be? You're meeting George Paz. What are you going to ask? And I was like, I was just hoping to get to know this really impressive man and find out what he had to think about what I'm doing. So I appreciate you bringing that up. I think too many people go into situations thinking, what can I get out of this? What can this person do for me? So I appreciate you sharing that. Sure. And Kasia, you brought up COVID, and that's sort of where we're going next too.
Yeah.
Wow, we are living in some interesting, challenging times, both with COVID and the racial unrest and all the things that are happening today. I mean, it is a lot. And I think we are all facing different levels and issues throughout this time. And so, I think and Kasia, you sort of brought it up as well. I think it's bringing attention to the power of community is even more so important, not just because of success, but also our well-being and our health. And I'm curious, what are some of the most powerful examples you're seeing in terms of community? I mean, I'm just like one quick aside. I interviewed Sarah Fryer from Nextdoor, and it was so neat to see how they are using Nextdoor to, help the neighbors and like go run errands for people who weren't able to run errands. Like that was an example to me that I was like, wow, what a neat platform that's using this platform to do good in the community beyond just being a success,
Sure.
So, and Kasia, you sort of alluded to it. I don't know if you mind jumping back in.
Not at all. Yeah, sure.
I didn't skip Gloria, did I? I'm getting all confused. I'm like, did I skip Gloria earlier? If I did, I apologize. I'm coming to you next.
No, you didn't. You're good. You're good.
Kasia, it's your turn. Then Gloria, it's yours.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think each of us, in whichever organization that we exist, right? We have mission statements, and we've got values, and we have pillars that define sort of some of the initiatives that, how we show up, right? And how we invest in our communities. I think, some of the most successful, most powerful examples are when businesses are, and again, this from a business perspective, coming from representing a company, I think when companies and organizations are able to pivot quickly to support the needs of their fellow mankind. And I think we've seen really great examples. And I think for many of the companies and organizations that are sitting on this panel and those attendees in the audience, I think, being able to quickly adjust the sails to support the most vulnerable. And a lot of us in our companies and as individuals are supporting senior age vulnerable populations, frontline healthcare workers, families that have lost frontline healthcare workers, through financial support or mental health and behavioral health support, providing, providing masks to those in need, free testing to those in disenfranchised or challenged communities where this is not a priority, right? It's, other things are a priority. And I think as community leaders, and I would say even as large corporations and individuals who are representing those organizations, we have to lead, and we have to adjust for the needs of the communities where we're living and working. And but we have to, again, I keep saying the word intention, but we've got to do it with an intention of giving back, right? Just like our companies should be representative and reflective of the people that we serve. That is incredibly important. So I know it's not a specific answer, and there were a few things that I sort of outlined there, but I think it's just the inherent ability to be able to really quickly pivot and talk to other leaders across the board, right? To say, what are you hearing? What are the needs, right? No one in this time, no one is competing for business in the way that we would ever compete for business. We're just trying to make it right and make it accessible and available as much as possible.
Yeah, that's awesome. Gloria, what about you? What are some examples you're seeing that's people stepping up and helping the well-being of others?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really great question. And I think to Kasia's point, I have been incredibly proud of the way that VF and our leadership and our brands and enterprise really stepped up and pivoted to meet the needs of our communities with our areas of expertise, whether that's providing PPE or, using cause marketing platforms where the foundation can match the work they're doing to support, garment workers around the world who are in incredibly vulnerable situations right now with COVID. But one thing that, I wanted to just mention that was incredibly powerful for me was an exercise we're continuing to go through as a company. There've been many bright spots and silver linings tied to the crises that we're facing in society now. But I think what did stand out for me and that has really touched me is that, over the past couple of weeks, VF and our employee resource group, our I&D team and Black employee resource group, they've been hosting collective virtual meditations, followed by carving out safe space for individuals to listen and to be heard and to, be courageous, be vulnerable. And there really is power in numbers. And I think this gets back to community and, the ability for us to tune in together with openness and compassion when emotions are so raw, and for my colleagues to have the courage to share their experiences of racism here in our backyard and across the country has been really powerful for me. And it's definitely fostered a deeper human connection and understanding in walls. And I think it's been a powerful reminder that we're all humans with real lives, real stories, real fears, real hopes, real dreams in terms of achieving a more just and equal and more compassionate society. And I think it's helped me as well in terms of continuing on my journey on how I can become a stronger ally for the Black community so that I'm better equipped to do my part, and advocate for social justice through my work and through my own voice.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's very important. Priya, how about you? What are some examples you've seen?
Yes, so let's see. So I love the example shared so far, and I'll give a more personal one. That's I forget when, but maybe it was last year. Every year I take a group of ladies fly fishing at our fly fishing country club called Lincoln Hills Fly Fishing Club. And as a result of coordinating the logistics of that trip, I started a WhatsApp group called Fly Ladies. And that, I believe, has now evolved into a group where we can not only support each other professionally and be there for each other, but also personally. And I believe it's helped my mental health personally because people are sharing their thoughts and they know that they won't be judged based on, whatever it is that they're feeling at that moment. The next point I wanted to add about that is we also share a value of being healthy. And so prior to COVID and during COVID, we have been working out together. So on Zoom every Saturday morning. So we've continued that tradition, and that's been a great touch point just to see each other's faces and all that good stuff. And then the other example of this is because we own a couple restaurants on Welton, we had the privilege to not only put in our own money through our foundation, but also raise money through Facebook fundraiser, where we provided meals to frontline emergency room workers during COVID. And we went from 1 hospital to 10, and some of them we did weekly for about 5 weeks. And that all came from community, right? So it was like an idea. We put a fund, and then we raised over $6,000, and we ended up just use that for food, but we were able to keep employed our restaurant workers to keep them busy as well, to pay them their hourly fee so that they're also working during that time. So just wanted to share those 2 examples.
That is awesome to hear. And that's the thing, COVID and everything that's happening is a challenge, and there's some beauty and there's some really neat stories like that. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Leanna, how about you?
Yeah, one of the last things I did in my time at CU Denver before I came to the Girl Scouts, after I was at CU Denver for about 9 years, and when COVID hit, one of the things that we really felt an impact was in food insecurity for some of our students. So our food banks had to close down as we shut down the Auraria campus. And this was not in my wheelhouse. It wasn't what I did, but I could not tolerate that. So reached out to Food Bank of the Rockies. Actually, Priya provided some help. Some of the folks on this call provided some help, and partnered with the other institutions on the Auraria campus that we sometimes compete with. But it was one of those examples where we're all in this together. So we actually, between all the institutions on the Auraria campus, stood up a mobile food bank within a week. The first time we served, first day we served 300 or so people, 7 tons of food. And I'm not at CU Denver anymore, but it's continuing. So I'm just very proud of that and being able to do a little something.
Yeah, absolutely. Scott, how about you?
Well, situations like this really bring out the worst and the best in people. And I've just seen such a great spirit in people who are delivering meals to senior centers and donating money, donating food. And there have been some really heartwarming stories during this whole pandemic. And, I just really want to give a shout out to all the first responders and the medical workers, because they are truly, truly heroes in this situation.
Absolutely. And the health and COVID and food insecurity is very, very prominently going on. And, but on top of that, this idea of the conversation around equality and Black Lives Matter, that it's very important that when you think about community, we're thinking and talking about those things as well. And, so I think we'd be remiss if we didn't take a moment to also have that conversation. I mean, we will not do it justice, and it's just scratching the surface. And I feel like we should have many panels about that beyond this. But I wanted to at least have the question of, what do you think you guys can do, to move equity forward? It's such an important thing that we're finally talking about it, more at mass, and what can we do to move equity forward and in the world, and whether, it be something that you do at work or outside work. Priya, I'm going to go to you first. You helped me get this question, so thank you for the question. I'm like nervously saying it, not doing it justice.
No, that sounds great. I love it. My passion is public education. So I am currently the chair of the Denver Public Schools Foundation Board in partnership with Veronica Fagoli, who's the CEO of the board. And I truly believe that cultural competency starts at school, because if you're within your family and you're within just your local immediate community, you may not have the inclusive and diverse diversity that you need to understand different cultures and understand different races. And so I believe it starts in school, and I'm a big proponent in investing in your public schools, whether you have kids or whether your kids attend private. And specifically, I want to mention in the most vulnerable communities, right? So if your school is already able to raise money like this, great, you can help that school, but they're doing pretty well, right? But it's the most vulnerable communities that happen to be Black and brown that do not have the resources, the Chromebooks, the tutoring, all that good stuff. So I highly encourage that to help with the equity issue, from helping to break that cycle. The second thing is for each of us on this call, not only the panelists, but also anybody that, you know, has the time and privilege to attend such a session, we should all find 1 to 3 people that we can sponsor, right? We all have the network, we all have the connections. We can carve out 10 minutes a week to do a touch base or think about that person to figure out, you know, what some advice you can provide to them. And I highly encourage everybody to do that for a woman and or a person of color. So those are 2 pieces that I believe that we can all do very simply to help with the equity issue.
Yes, and I don't know if you can see the chats, but someone gave you snaps when you were talking. I just wanted to call out snap to you. Scott, Scott, how about you? How are you thinking how you can make an impact when it comes to equity?
Well, my passion is actually working with the prison systems, and I've been working on a program that would help inmates who are 1 year from re-entering society to prepare them with the tools they need to succeed on the outside. So many inmates are released with no money in their pocket, a bag full of clothes, and nowhere to go because they've not been accepted back into their family or whatever the situation may be. And so I've been going to the federal prison in Florence about 10 times a year for the last 6 years. And I take speakers to inspire the men in Florence, and Black, Hispanic, Native American. And I can tell you this, the first time I took a speaker down there, within 10 minutes, I said to myself, you know what? I am only one bad decision away from being here. And I said, I am no better than these guys who are in prison right now. And because of that, and the response from the guys to the speaker, that very first time I visited the prison, the federal prison in Florence, I said, I've got to come back. And I'm the program director, what I can do to get more involved. They said, well, you can't come just visit, and you probably don't want to do the crime to hang out here all the time. I said, well, I can bring speakers. So for the last 6 years, I've taken former inmates. I've taken Tommy Spalding, who's a best-selling author and speaker all over the country. And I have gotten to know these men as men, Black men, and like I said, Hispanic and Native Americans, and they're just brothers to me. And I want to do anything I can to help them succeed on the outside, because it makes for not only a safer community, but a much better life for them if they can succeed when they re-enter and become a father again, become a husband again, become a son and a brother again. And we all win when that happens.
Well, thank you for doing that. Yeah, I think that's really powerful. Leanna, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking, I mean, all of us on this call have a platform, and I think we have an obligation and a responsibility to use that platform however we can. And in this situation, we are called upon to step up to that. So as a brand new CEO of the Girl Scouts, I was thinking about what can we do? You know, we're looking at how we raise girls of confidence and character who can change the world, but what else can we do? And the Girl Scouts actually has a long history in equity and diversity and inclusion. So we are actually, and this is hot off the presses, we're announcing more officially next week, you know, the badges and the patches that the girls earn. There is a patch program out of the Girl Scouts that actually covers the Minneapolis Council. And we are borrowing their equity, diversity and inclusion patch curriculum. And we're bringing a bunch of partners together. We're going to announce it next week. It is a curriculum that's age specific, and we're taking it beyond. You don't have to be a girl. You don't have to be a Girl Scout. We're encouraging families and parents to sit down with their youth and go through this curriculum together. And we're looking at how we push that out as broadly as possible. So it will be based on age. So the younger ones will be doing drawings and crafts and worksheets as kids get older, they will work with their parents on poems, on reflections, on research. So really excited just to bring a bunch of people together to use that curriculum to try to get the word out and to not make it exclusive in any way and to put it out there as broadly as possible. And I'll just say that I've been thinking myself personally about listening, and I've always thought listening is so important. And, you know, I think I was wrong. It's not, we've been listening for years. I don't think we've been hearing. So I think there's this magic moment right here where we can move from listening to hearing and really that comprehension piece, and then it's got to go to acting. And I really do think that there's huge potential in the unrest of this moment, and we got to capitalize on it and use our platforms.
Ooh, that's powerful. Listening to hearing. Ooh, that's so powerful. Gloria, how about you? How are you guys working on equity?
Yeah, I'm snapping over here as well. I mean, we all know that this is a holistic issue that we're tackling, right? And it's very complex, and we all do our part to chip at this boulder, right? And that's down a hill, quite frankly. And I do, feel like we're at such an important turning point in our history, as a country and as a world. And it's not just, enough to not be racist. We have to have these conversations about how to be anti-racist as well. And we do have a unique and important role to play to affect positive and meaningful change. As Leanna said, through our platforms, even with our foundation, in terms of ensuring that we can be as inclusive as possible, and the work that we're doing in the outdoor space, within our company walls, outside our company walls, and within the outdoor industry. And I also just think that it starts with awareness and really taking a deep look inside of ourselves as individuals, and accepting that we're all in different places in that journey of acknowledging and understanding our own unconscious biases, and challenging myself and those around me to truly listen and learn and allow other people to be heard, and how we can be better allies and advocates for people of color, and use our voices to initiate and facilitate constructive conversations starts with family, friends, colleagues, and being courageous enough if someone does have a limited view to ask, inquire on why they feel that way, and speaking up and engaging others is an important step in moving towards understanding those levers of systemic racism, so we can start the hard work of building more sustainable and equitable communities.
Yeah, so important. Kasia, how about you?
Yeah, I just think very much to Gloria's point, I think now more than ever, and Leanna's as well. I think we need that spirit of collaboration, and I think this community has to evolve to action. I think particularly in these really highly sensitive times that are challenging interactions with people that are different life experiences than we do. I have my own journey during a very challenging time, but there's no comparison. Look, it's clear I have 0 years experience being Black, being a person of color. And so the best thing that I could do personally is actively listen, seek to understand and be empathetic. But I think fundamentally, ask the question, how can I support you? And my responsibility is to act on that response. It's not just to just be part of that equation. And that's inevitably my duty. And I think these actions are invariably, I think the best start. I think, I received this interesting piece of advice from one of my mentors on the first day that I started with Cigna, and sadly on the last day of his journey with Cigna. And, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that sits with me every single day.
Can you say that one more time in case someone missed it? Because it's really
people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah, that is such good advice. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
And the teacher in me is watching the clock, and we're getting close to the end. So I have a couple questions left, but I'm like, I got to pick which one am I going to go with? So I get time for one or two Q&A from the audience. And so the question I'm going to end with to ask you all, we live in a world that's more connected than ever before. You don't even have to leave your house to get groceries, as we know well these days, but we are more disconnected than ever before. I mean, Kasia, I know you and I have talked about this, loneliness epidemic and these studies that different companies and organizations have done. And especially with COVID, I think it really exposed how challenging, it is, and that there are quite a few people out there that feel quite lonely. And I know that there's probably people out there listening today thinking, yeah, these people are great. They've had all this success. Their community is fabulous, blah, blah, blah. But how can I build community? Like, if I'm one of those people sitting at home feeling so isolated, so alone, and thinking, how the heck did they do that? How can I do that?
But still lonely.
Yeah.
We're still lonely.
Well, I think that's a really good point. It's this idea of and not or. It's not that once you have a community that the lonely goes away. The world is so much of and. We need to let go of this concept of or. It's not your success or your failure. You have community or you're lonely, right? It's and the sooner we get more comfortable with this concept of and, it's better. But I'd be remiss because I'm sure there's people listening wondering, and like, what advice? I'm sitting at home, I don't have a community, I'm new to Denver, I'm new to St. Louis, or I'm new wherever. How the heck do I go about building this community? I mean, I know I built the community having one coffee at a time. I've had 3,000 coffees with quite a few people, but not everyone has the privilege of having coffee with thousands of people. So, if someone wants to get started building their community, Leanne, I see you.
I will say, well, I'm going to take kind of a flip side on that, but I think we have a responsibility in these little Zoom things where you're looking at people's lives behind them to really pay attention. And being intentional has been mentioned several times, but I try to, on each of these, to pay attention to what life is going on. And so that we're seeing each other in a larger context. I mean, these little tiles of people give us a little glimpse into people's lives. And I think we have a responsibility to really pay attention and to try to reach out if we sense that someone is isolated or lonely, and just recognize our humanity. So I think one of the bright spots in this whole COVID thing is this reminder that we are whole people with dogs that dart in and kids that dart in and bad things that just happen around us. And that recognition, I think, makes us better leaders, makes us better friends and colleagues. So what I've tried to do is just be more intentional and notice that and reach out more, because some people really, really need it. And I think we have to pay attention to that and do what we can to bring them in.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I definitely think that is an important part of the conversation. Gloria, what advice would you give to someone feeling that way and at the starting point of their career or trying to build community?
I mean, it's a really great question. And I think, what Leanna mentioned, I think is really important. I think we get so just engaged in everything that we're doing at home. And I think it gets a lot more, you have to be very intentional of even just disconnecting from your computer and from your devices. And so you can't be there for other people unless you're able to commit to that self-care for yourself during these uncertain times. I think being intentional, shutting off the device and reconnecting even with our surroundings in the natural world, I think that's more important now than ever too. I think it's important to carve out that time to disconnect, go outside, take in the healing power of nature. I mean, it truly does lift your mind, body, and spirit in so many ways. And I can tell you, even just in my neighborhood, I live in a dense area in Capitol Hill. I have met more of my neighbors just walking around, being thoughtful and socially distancing, but I feel like I have a greater connection to my neighborhood and local community here, folks that I would have never even had that opportunity to just pause and have conversations with them when they, walk by and I'm on my porch, or I'm walking, down the sidewalk and end up having a conversation with someone. So I think it does provide you the opportunity to slow down a little bit and recharge. And when you can do that and have that power to do that, then you can tap into, how you can help others by also just taking care of yourself too.
Yeah, no, you can't pour from an empty cup. Yes. Priya, how about you? When you came to, it sounds like you came to Denver and built quite the community. How did you do it? What advice do you have?
I would say, I love the saying, show me your calendar and I'll show you your priorities. Ooh. I don't know if I say it exactly right, but something to that effect.
Yeah.
And along with what everybody's already shared, I would say it takes work. And a lot of it also has to do with how much work and time that you want to put into it, as far as you reaching out to people, asking them, how are they doing? you know, what's going on in their life, all that good stuff, because I believe that also helps build community.
Yeah, that's
So
really
I'll
good.
leave it at that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Scott, how about you?
Well, those of you who know me know that I've got just a little bit of energy and I love to be with people. And so being at home all this time, I'm driving my wife crazy. She said, honey, if you don't leave, I can't miss you.
I like her. She's cute.
I try to,
Smart, so smart.
try to get out of her sight. But what I've really enjoyed doing, because I do like the connection, but I just try to make contact with 10 to 15 people a day, phone calls, text messages, emails, just to let them know I'm thinking about them.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sell them anything. I just am truly interested in how they're doing. And so, you know, with my contacts, I have plenty of people to call. And it makes you feel good when you make them feel good. And I don't do it to feel good. I'm doing it sincerely to see how they're doing. And I said, tell me a story. What's going on with your family? What's going on with work? And how are you really doing? And they enjoy that interaction. They really do. And if you're new to the community and you don't have a network, just look for opportunities to give.
Smart.
And there are plenty of opportunities out there. Well, when you're out there giving, you're meeting other givers, and that's where you'll start building this community of yours.
That's awesome. Kasia, how about you? Last but certainly not least, right? You get to be the final say on this.
Well, you know, I think this coming from the company that I am representing today, I think, you know, this is a very important topic and one that does not get lost on me because, you know, again, extrovert over here, you know, we're human beings inherently are social animals. We're wired to be connected to one another. And to be socially connected to one another, physically connected to one another. And so it's natural. It's natural to feel this sense of loneliness. And I think, you know, interestingly enough, the company that I work for, Cigna, published a study around loneliness in America. And it showed that 61% of Americans feel lonely. And this is a recent study. And we're slightly higher here in Denver at 65%. And then we calculated a loneliness score around a couple of questions, and the measure of how lonely we truly are nationally, but also in some of the metro areas across our country. And our national loneliness score was 45.7, and in Denver, slightly higher at 46.8, which was interesting. And I think taken together, these numbers mean that more folks obviously in Denver feel lonely, and our level of loneliness is higher compared to the national average. And I think probably one of the things that you ask yourself is, well, why is that bad? You know, beautiful. We have 300, you know, whatever plus days a year of sunshine that should be helping us. Well, you know, what that totally indicates for us, if we were to think about this, is that the study also showed that loneliness has the same impact on mortality as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So it has to change, right? And I think loneliness also impacts us at work and the individuals that we're trying to bring up alongside us. They're less likely to, you know, they're more likely to, you know, to miss work because they're ill or they're stressed, their productivity is lower, it's lower quality of work, and they're more likely to quit. And so right now when we're all social distancing, right, and we're trying to be really mindful, we can still stay connected, and we can, you know, these virtual conversations that we have are important. You know, the endorphins that we get from getting on the Peloton or doing the walks or doing the hikes, or, you know, having our, you know, our virtual exercise classes as a fly lady, you know, or having a driveway or backyard social distancing happy hour, whatever, you know, even giving to charity or having a moment of gratitude changes the chemistry in your brain for a moment. And the more you do that, the more impactful that can be. And I think inevitably it's about just also doing a lot of self-reflection, which I don't think that we often do I think most of us on this panel are rubber chicken, you know, lunches, dinners, and, you know, going from one event to another. We don't really reflect on the things that are really important. I think that to me is again, great advice. I need to take it myself, but it's one that, these are clinicians on a regular basis that connect with me, connect with other leaders in the company to make sure that we're doing the right thing for ourselves, but also for the people that we're leading. So.
Yeah, and it's such an important topic, and all of you, everything you shared today was just, I don't know about the attendees, but for me, it was incredibly impactful, and I just really appreciate, getting through COVID. For those of you who don't know, our 1-year anniversary in Denver was April 17th, and the idea to have this panel was to have it at our 1-year anniversary party. And when COVID hit, we had to postpone our party. And at first I was like, no, we're going to wait on this panel. I want to do it live. I don't want to do it virtually. But it just became this feeling like this is such an important topic. And I know that like Rise Collaborative is still here today because of the power of community. Because when I wanted to quit and give up, people reached out and said, no, Gloria Neal in Denver picked me back up when I was on my butt thinking I'm out. I can't pull this off. There are many people who helped me to keep going when I wanted to quit. And I have seen in my own life how much the power community has changed myself and Rise. And Kasia, I appreciate some of the ideas you had, although it's great to see people personally, just being connected digitally can be impactful. And so much so that you guys are the first to know, speaking of first to know, Leanna, Rise actually is launching on Monday, but I'm going to open it up to you guys tomorrow, Rise Digital. Right? We had to pivot like the rest of the world. And we are just so excited and proud to share that now people can connect not just in person at our beautiful workspaces, but also online on our wonderful platform. It's like LinkedIn, Facebook, Eventbrite, all the things you can imagine swirled in. And we even have Rise TV where you can watch these kind of things. So I hope you all will check it out. I'm sorry I didn't get to questions, and I'm sorry I'm past 6 o'clock, but it has been such a pleasure and joy to talk to all of you all. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Stacy.
Thank you.
Good to see you
really
all.
enjoyed it. And it was great to see all of you panelists too.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Hopefully we'll see you in the flesh soon.
I hope you enjoyed it. Talk to you all later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.